What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about the 4 pillars of qualification, which in my opinion is vital to any wholesaler. Anybody that's out looking for deals needs to understand the 4 pillars of qualification. And the reason for that is because I think that one of the biggest problems that wholesalers run into is that they are, at least the ones that are not doing enough deals or not doing any deals, is because they're spending the majority of their time with bad leads rather than with good leads. And every minute that you spend with a bad lead is time that you can't be talking to a good lead, right? And so the 4 pillars of qualification, what it is 4 pieces of information that can give you an idea of how quality that lead is, right? And how likely they are to sell to somebody like an investor, a wholesaler, or if they're in the 94 to 96% of the real estate market that is going to sell their house on the market with an agent, fix it up a little bit, make it look nice, and sell it for highest and best, right? Those aren't the people that we're looking to serve. The people that we're looking to serve are the ones that they are willing to trade equity in their property for the speed and convenience of a cash offer, right? Instead of putting the property on the market and waiting for 60, 90, sometimes more days to actually sell and get their money. These people, they want to sell like in a couple of weeks. They want their money like now, right? Those are the people that we're looking to serve. And because they're on a tight timeline, and usually their houses need a lot of work, they're willing to accept a discount they're willing to accept a big enough discount for a wholesaler or an investor to make money, right? So the 4 pillars of qualification allows us to make sure that we're spending our time with leads that fit that description, right? So let's take a look at it. So the 4 pillars of qualification are, the first one is going to be the condition of the property, right? Like I said before, we're looking for people that their houses need work primarily. I can remember maybe 2 fully renovated houses that I've wholesaled out of almost 200 deals. So it's certainly not something to build a business around, the prettier houses. If you're looking to wholesale, you want to focus on distress, focus on ugly houses, right? Because again, the likelihood of somebody that has a house that needs $100,000 in work, the likelihood of them selling at a discount is much higher than somebody that's got beautiful, granite countertops, new flooring, resurfaced pool, all of that sort of stuff. So when you're making calls and you're talking with sellers and you ask them questions about the condition of their property and they start bragging about how beautiful their house is, how much money they just dumped into renovations, all this sort of stuff. If they start talking up their property and trying to sell you on how it's the best property on the block, most likely in almost every scenario, they are not going to be a quality lead for you as an investor, as a wholesaler, right? Why? Because there's a lot of pride of ownership. They just got done telling you about how amazing their house is. Why do you think they would sell it to you at a 40% discount, right? So you have to focus on people that have properties that need a bunch of work. So that's why it's the number one. That's why it's pillar number 1, right? The condition of their property. You're looking for people that say stuff like, yeah, the house needs work. It's a mess. Deferred maintenance, stuff like that. That's what you're listening for when you're asking these questions. That's the kind of response that you want that's going to tell you, hey, this might be a quality lead for us here. Number 2 is going to be their motivation to sell the property, right? So why does the seller want to sell? Do they want to sell because they're going to be foreclosed on next month? Do they want to sell because they just lost their job and they need money? Do they want to sell because, let's say they just got a tenant evicted, or their tenant still needs to be evicted and they're not paying rent or something like that? Those are motivations to sell, right? And those are motivations that might lead somebody to sell their property at a discount, especially if pillar number 1 is met, which is it is in rough condition, right? So what is a motivation that is not a good lead for us? Somebody that wants to downsize, somebody that wants to move closer to their family, somebody that wants to buy a bigger house, buy one with a pool, buy one with an extra bedroom. Those might be motivations to sell a property, and that might be a totally valid reason for why that seller wants to sell. But do you think that them wanting to buy a house with an extra bedroom is a good enough reason for them to take a 30 to 40% discount on the property for a cash offer? No. If you give them a low offer and their house is in good shape and their biggest reason that they want to sell is to move closer to their family, and their house is worth $400,000 and you offer $200,000, they're going to hang up on you, right? They're not going to be interested in that, because why would they accept an offer like that? So when you're asking people why they want to sell, you're looking for answers like, well, I need to move across the country, or I'm sick of dealing with the property, or my tenant's not paying me rent, or, things like that, problems. Wanting to sell because you want to downsize or upsize, that might be a problem for them personally, but that's not a problem that would lead somebody to taking a huge price cut or a huge discount on their property, right? So that's pillar number 2. Pillar number 3, honestly, I think that pillar number 3 is probably the most important pillar, and we actually qualify or categorize our leads as cold, warm, or hot leads based off of their timeline. Because at the end of the day, if they have an ugly house, maybe they have a motivation to sell or a good asking price, but they don't want to sell for a year, there's a lot of things that could change between now and a year, right? So that's not considered a hot lead in our book. Even if, let's say I go on Zillow and the Zestimate is $300,000, and they say, hey, I'll take $150,000. That's a great asking price, right? But if they don't want to sell for a year or 6 months, 9 months, then there's a lot that can change between then, right? So I wouldn't consider that a hot lead. Now, again, on the flip side of that, and this is why it's important to have all of these pillars so that you can view them against each other, and it makes more sense as you get into it and you start looking at more and more leads. But like, for example, on the flip side of that, let's say the seller has a house that's in bad shape, and they have a motivation to sell the property that, let's say they're getting foreclosed on next month. They have an ugly house, they're getting foreclosed on next month. So there's your motivation and your timeline. They need to sell in the next month to avoid foreclosure. Let's say their asking price is really high, right? The house is worth $300,000 and they want $300,000. That's still a quality lead because you have condition, check. Motivation, check. Timeline, check. You have all of that stuff. So at the end of the day, if they have a defined timeline to sell and a motivation, even if their asking price is too high, they're going to have to get realistic on price if they want to sell their property quickly, right? So I kind of skipped over asking price, which is the 4th pillar. What does the seller want for the property, right? That's the number 4 pillar. But at the end of the day, it's important to have all of these, or at least most of these, so that you can look at them as a whole, right? So let's consider another example here of a common seller that we deal with that I think a lot of wholesalers would probably spend more time with than they should. And that's the seller who has a house that they say there's a little bit of fixing up that could be done, and maybe they have an asking price. They're willing to give a bit of a discount from retail for the speed and convenience of a cash offer, but not enough for a wholesale, right? So I see a lot of people spend time with leads like this. So let's say that you ask the question about the condition and they say something like, yeah, I mean, it could use some new paint, maybe some new appliances. There's a few shingles loose, stuff like that, but they're mostly saying that the property's in good condition, but there's just some very little things that need to be fixed up. So we don't have the condition. That doesn't meet our criteria, right, as an investor, because it's in too good a shape. Their motivation to sell, let's say that their motivation is they want to move closer to their kids, right? And they're ready to sell right now. So, okay, motivation, I'm going to do another dash because it's not a motivation that fits our buy box or our criteria as investors, right? So their condition doesn't meet, their motivation doesn't meet. Let's say you ask them when they want to sell and they say right now, I'll sell today, right? So, okay, they have a quick timeline, check mark there. Asking price, let's say you ask them what they want to sell for the property, or what they want for the property, and they say, well, houses are sold around here around 300,000. So for a quick cash offer, I'll take 250, right? So a lot of people, they might think, okay, they're willing to give a discount, right? Maybe I can negotiate with them and get it a little bit, maybe I can get it down even further. So I'll give it we'll check it just because they're not asking for way more than the property's worth, but a lot of people would consider this a lead, right? For us, this is not a lead. This is not a lead because their motivation is not enough. Their timeline might be there, and their asking price might even be they're willing to give a discount. But here's the thing. They're thinking that an investor can come in, fix it up for very little, and is not. A lot of people just very seriously underestimate how much work needs to go in a property. So they might think, hey, if the house is worth 300,000, an investor could buy it for 340, put 30 into it and make 30,000, right? That's not the case, because you're going to pay commissions, closing costs, hard money fees. Rehabs are a lot more expensive than they used to be, right? So a lot of people just very underestimate how much money goes into fixing and flipping houses. So a seller might think they're giving an investor a good discount by saying, hey, you can get into this for 60K below retail value. But the problem is, let's underwrite this based off of a $300,000 ARV, right? So 300K ARV. And if you don't know, I'm going to go through our max allowable offer calculator or calculation. If you are not familiar with that, there's another video. Check it out. I break down a deal and I run through all these numbers. But okay, so let's take off our 2% for closing costs and commissions. What is that going to give us? Okay, 300 times 0.92. That's going to give us 276. And remember, this is a seller that says, hey, I'll sell to you for 240. My house is worth 300. I'll take a discount. Buy it from me for 240, right? So now let's consider, let's say the house really only does need $30,000 in work, minus 30,000. Now we're at 246, right? 246. So if we minus our $240,000 purchase price, we're looking at a $6,000 profit, right? No fix and flipper is going to buy a house and fix and flip it, put all that money to risk, take out the loan, have a bunch of risk in their name and their LLC or whatever for a $6,000 profit. So again, that seller might think they're offering somebody a discount, but it's nowhere near enough of a discount to actually be able to make money. But I'll see a lot of people that will spend time with leads like this, going out and seeing their house, running, very detailed scope of works to try to come up with a rehab budget, when the simple fact is what they should have done is something like this. Hey, Mr. Seller, I appreciate the $240,000. I appreciate you offering the property to me for $240,000, but unfortunately that still doesn't allow enough of a buffer for me to make money. So, if I can buy this house quickly, I can buy it for cash, but I probably have to pay around $160,000 for it, right? Most likely, if this is all true and the house isn't in that bad a shape, their motivation to sell is only to be closer to family and no other motivation, right? That's their biggest reason that they want to sell. If you give them an actual investor offer of $160,000, they're going to think you're insane. They're going to probably be offended. They're like, I just offered you the property for $240,000. That's a great deal. That's not a lead for us, right? Because they're somebody that should hire an agent, put it on the market at a slight discount so that they can sell it to somebody that's going to live in it. That's not enough of a discount for an investor to be able to turn around and make money. And that's a very common misconception that I see from wholesalers. And that's probably this type of seller is probably the biggest time waster that there is. So again, this is why it's important to have the 4 pillars of qualification so that you can look at leads from a holistic view and see, is this somebody that is likely to do business with me as an investor, or are they more likely to put the property on the market with an agent like most people do, right? So I hope this video helped. I hope it made sense. If you got any questions, leave them below. And as always, I will catch you in the next video.